To be a good lawyer, you have to be a good communicator. So why is it that the client's number one complaint about lawyers is the lawyer's failure to communicate? Welcome to Front Porch Lawyer, where we explore the humanity and emotional intelligence of lawyering. I'm Francine, your host. Now, I'm not talking about the lawyer who just doesn't return phone calls, doesn't explain anything, and ignores the client. Those people deserve to be complained about that they don't communicate. I'm talking about the lawyer who has communicated, who has given the information to the client, who has returned phone calls, done everything they're supposed to do, and then later the client complains that the lawyer didn't communicate. What's going on with that? Well, there's two things. One is the client did not fully understand the information that was being given to the client, and two, the client does not have a memory of the information that was given to them. So my favorite definition of communication is the following. It is the passing of information and understanding from one person to the other. I like it because the word understanding gets equal billing as the word information. So let's just take one example, a common example that a lawyer and a client goes through in a litigation, which is preparing for a deposition. And how many times have you told the client, just answer the question? And they get into a deposition and they just start talking. And you're kicking them under the table to get them to stop, and they just keep talking. Or they turn to you and say, would you stop kicking me under the table? So there's two things here. Like I said, there's understanding and memory. So the first thing is understanding. We know that there are certain things that we have to do as lawyers to understand when a client is giving us information. But we can't assume that the client is an effective listener. So it's up to you to check for understanding. One of the ways to check for understanding is to ask the client to repeat back to you the information in their own words. This way you know they've understood, and now they've said it, and it's going to anchor that understanding a little bit more. Second one is memory. Memory is important because our brains, actually, is a little brain science for you. Our brains are designed to forget. So when you have that cut and dry discussion about deposition preparation in the office with your client, about 20 minutes later, they have forgotten most of what you've told them. So you have to do something to anchor this information so they remember it. And the way you anchor information is through emotion. Something has to happen during your discussion to evoke an emotion that attaches to the information. So back before I was a lawyer, I was sitting on deposition preparations with other lawyers doing it. And one of the things that I noted was that the lawyer would sit on one side of the conference table, and the client would sit on the other side, and they would have this dialogue. And when it was over, they would shake hands, and the client would go, and they would see him at the deposition. And I realized that when the client shows up at deposition, the lawyer is not sitting at the other side of the table. They're sitting next to the client. Opposing counsel is sitting across the table. So when I became a lawyer, I changed the way I did my client preparation just a little bit, and I would sit with the client on the same side of the conference table with the client. And every once in a while I would get up and go to the other side so that I could play the opposing attorney, but I would sit on the same side as we chatted about their case. And it gave me the opportunity to practice kicking him under the table as well, so they would know what it felt like when I was kicking them under the table. And I told them I would do that only if they needed to stop talking. And it was great because they would remember these things. And during the preparation, sometimes they would laugh about it, sometimes they get a little annoyed with me. It didn't matter because it was an emotional anchor. So the next time you are preparing your client for deposition, or just giving any other information, do two things that maybe you're not doing right now. One is check for understanding. Don't assume they understand when you've explained it to them the first round. And two, create some kind of emotional anchor so they remember the information. Now, I can't guarantee that your client is going to remember everything, nor can I guarantee that they won't go talking beyond the question in a deposition, but they will have a better understanding and they will have more memory. As a result of that, they will have less to complain about after you've done everything you're supposed to. Thank you for joining me on my front porch. This is Francine and Front Porch Lawyer, and I'll see you next time.